Don't say a word. Just watch.
Hello, welcome to the podcast of Kabbalah Vision, the connection point between the order of the invisible world and our souls. I am Luri, your guide who will accompany you on this journey of wisdom today. Welcome back to the deep dive. It is really great to have you with us again. We're continuing our journey through the Zohar's lens on the Torah, and today we are landing quite literally on Genesis 8.
Quite literally landing. Yeah.
Right. Now, usually when people talk about Noah, the focus is just entirely on the flood itself, the rain, the destruction, the whole drama of the ark tossing on the waves.
Which we covered extensively in the last session.
Yeah.
The shattering of the vessels that unbridled Jevero.
The Sitra Akra, just running wild.
Exactly. Total chaos.
Yeah, and since you're already well-versed in the mechanics of the flood and those first 7 chapters, we really aren't going to rehash all the wet parts today. We're looking at the aftermath.
Morning after.
Right, the morning after, the waters receding, the birds flying out, and the door finally opening. And I think the temptation when you read the literal text of Genesis 8 is to just breathe this huge sigh of relief. You think, okay, the scary part is over. Now we just have some cleanup and some geology.
Right, the sun comes out, the mud dries, and life goes on. But, the Zohar drying isn't geology. It's theology.
That is the tagline for today right there. It's not geology, it's theology. Because if Genesis 1 through 7 was the system crashing like a total failure of the Midot to harmonize, then Genesis 8 is the system rebooting.
Yeah, it's the actual mechanics of realignment. We're basically going to watch the Sephirot put themselves back together.
So here is our mission. We are decoding Genesis 8 verse by verse, looking for those Sephiric keys. We'll unpack the resting of the ark, which is way more than just parking a boat. We're going to get into that famous reconnaissance mission of the raven and the dove.
Which, spoiler alert, is one of the most complex psychospiritual maps in the entire Zohar.
Oh, absolutely. And we will finish up with the rainbow, which the Zohar treats almost like a wiring diagram for the covenant.
It really is. It's the definitive shift from chaos back to structure.
Let's just dive right in. We have this verse, Genesis 8:4, and the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat. Now, to a historian, that's just a calendar date. It grounds the narrative in time.
Sure, but the Zohar reads the 7th month and immediately stops the tape.
Right.
Because for the mystic, time is qualitative right, not just quantitative. The 7th month isn't just a random slot on a timeline. It's a very specific spiritual identity. The Zohar explicitly identifies this month as Tishrei,
which completely changes the whole texture of the narrative. If the ark is resting in Tishrei, we aren't just talking about mud drying out in ancient Mesopotamia. We are talking about the energy of the high holy days.
Precisely. And the Zohar makes this fascinating structural comparison here. The text says the waters decreased continually. And the Zohar asks, well, what is actually decreasing?
Right. It's not just H2O.
No, definitely not. The waters of the flood represent the dominance of the Sitra Achra, the accusers, those forces of judgment that had totally overwhelmed the world. And just as those waters receded in the narrative of Noah, the sins of Israel and the power of the accusers recede during the month of Tishrei.
I found this connection in the source material to be absolutely brilliant. It links the receding waters specifically to the sacrifices of Sukkot. And at first glance, you'd think, what does a bullock on an altar have to do with floodwaters? But the math is undeniable.
It is a beautiful technical connection. Think about the Musaf offerings on Sukkot. The Torah commands a very strange sequence. On the first day of Sukkot, you sacrifice 13 bullocks, the next day 12, then 11.
It just counts down day by day?
Exactly, until you hit 7 on Hoshana Rabbah.
It's a diminishing count. I mean, it's the only offering structure quite like that in the Torah.
Right, and the Zohar says this countdown actually mirrors the receding waters. The waters of the flood are the external forces, the princes of the 70 nations, the Dinim. As you engage in the tikkun of Tishrei, starting with the intense judgment of Rosh Hashanah and the cleansing of Yom Kippur, and then the joy of Sukkot, the power of those external forces is literally drained away.
So the bullocks represent the strength of the Kelipot?
In a sense, yes.
Right.
We are offering them up, diminishing their hold on reality, 13, 12, 11. Just as the waters dropped cubit by cubit. It's essentially a war of attrition against the Sitra Ashra. By the time you get to the end of the holiday, The waters are gone, and the influence of the accusers is broken.
So when we read the ark rested, we aren't visualizing a boat hitting a rock on Mount Ararat. We are visualizing Malchut finding peace.
Yes, that's the core mapping. The ark is Malchut. During the flood, Malchut was tossed about by those chaotic Jevros. It was completely unstable, disconnected from Zir Anpin, surrounded by the raging waters of the external forces.
Yeah.
The resting is the Shekinah, finally finding a place of stability after the removal of those severe judgments.
Speaking of severe judgments, we have to talk about the measurement. This is one of those details I usually skim over, but the Zohar obsesses over it. The text mentions the waters rose 15 cubits upward over the mountains. You brought some notes from the Arizal on this. Why is 15 the magic number for destruction here?
Well, this gets into the Lurianic mechanics of why the crash happened in the first place. You have to remember the divine name associated with structure and mercy is the Tetragrammaton. Yud-He, Vav-He.
Great.
The first two letters, Yud and He, represent the intellectual lights.
And numerically, Yud is 10 and He is 5, so 15.
Exactly. The Arizal explains that the flood represented a total withdrawal of that Yud-He. The intellectual lights, those Chassidim, withdrew from the feminine waters of Malchut. When humanity corrupted its way, the light of the Yud-He, the 15, withdrew from the name Elohim.
Leaving you with a void, a spiritual vacuum where the Chassidim used to be.
Right. And in the spiritual physics of the Zohar, nature abhors a vacuum. When the 15 withdraws judgment, immediately rushes in to fill that exact space. So the 15 cubits of water represent the dominance of the unmitigated Jevero that rushed in to fill the void of the Yud-He.
That frames the whole event so differently. It's not that there was just too much water randomly. It's that there was a specific absence of God's name, Yah. The flood was the exact measurement of that missing relationship.
That is a perfect way to put it. It was raw, unmitigated severity, because the sweetener of the Yud-He was gone, and the subsequent subsiding of the waters is the return of that light, the 15 returning to sweeten the judgment.
Okay, so the waters are down, the Ark Melchut is resting. Now we get to the famous scene. Noah opens a window and sends out the birds. First the raven, then the dove. And I feel like in Sunday school this is always treated as trial and error. Like, well, the raven didn't work, so let's try a different model.
As if Noah was just guessing at biology. But for the Zohar, Noah is the Tzaddik, right? He is Yesod. He knows exactly what he's doing. These two birds are completely different spiritual entities with very distinct functions in the Partsuf.
So let's start with the raven then. Why send it at all? If Noah is Yesod, surely he knows a raven eats carrion and isn't going to be a reliable messenger for peace.
Oh, well, the raven Harev is treated by the Zohar as intrinsic to the Sitra Akra. It represents the coarser aspects of severity. It's dark, it's noisy, and it feeds on death. The text literally says the raven went forth to and fro. It didn't accomplish anything, it just flew back and forth.
I couldn't find a place to land.
Because its very nature is conflict and restlessness. The Zohar connects this to the nature of unrectified din. It hovers around the waist, around the carrion, and remember, technically there are dead bodies floating in this water. The raven is completely at home in the chaos. It cannot bring back the news of life because it is stuck in the realm of death.
It's almost as if Noah had to expel the raven to clear the air in the ark before he could send the dove. Like a purification rite.
There is definitely an element of that, yeah. You cannot engage the Kedusha, the holiness, until you have separated out the Klippa. The raven is that separation. It's the residue of the judgment that needs to be released.
Right.
But then we get to the dove. And the Zohar gets very specific here. It doesn't just say a dove.
No, it calls it Yonah, the renowned dove.
Right. And the Zohar makes a massive lead here and identifies the dove as Nesit Yisrael, the assembly of Israel, and in parallel, the Torah itself.
The connection to the Torah was what really stood out to me. There is this beautiful section in the Pinchas and Sav portions of the Zohar that analyzes the anatomy of the dove to explain how it works as a spiritual vehicle. It talks specifically about the wings.
It's a vital teaching for understanding prayer and the elevation of worlds. The Zohar asks, how does the dove, which is Melchut, ascend to Zir Anpin? How does that connection happen? A bird obviously cannot fly with its body alone. It needs wings.
And the Zohar maps the wings to the precepts, the mitzvot.
Correct. The right wing corresponds to the positive precepts. The do this commands. This is chist. The left wing corresponds to the negative precepts. The do not do this commands. This is javura. Malchut cannot rise to Zir Anpin without the balance of chist and gevura.
That makes so much sense.
Right. If you only have love or only have restriction, you just fly in circles.
Yeah.
You need both wings to generate lift.
So when Noah sends out the dove, he isn't just sending a bird to look for a tree. He is actively activating the mechanism of Marian raising the feminine waters through the balance of the precepts.
Exactly. He is initiating the contact from below to above. The raven was just noise. The dove is actual communication. And look at what the dove brings back, an olive leaf.
Plucked in her mouth.
The Zohar comments on the nature of the olive leaf. An olive is inherently bitter. But the dove, representing Israel, says essentially, I would rather have food that is bitter but comes directly from the hand of the Holy One than sweet food that comes from the hand of flesh and blood, or in some readings from the other side.
It's a declaration of independence from the Sitra Atra. It's like saying, I will take the bitterness of the cure over the sweetness of the poison.
It really is. It's Melchut saying, I am reconnecting to the source, even if the sustenance is meager initially. It's the beginning of the restoration of the covenant. The olive leaf represents the Yesod energy, the sustenance beginning to flow again, even if it's just a trickle.
There's also a very heavy, almost eschatological note in the Zohar regarding this specific dove. It mentions that the renowned dove is actually hidden away. It's not just gone, it's waiting.
Yes, this is from the portion of Shlach Lecha. It describes a future scene involving the King Messiah ascending a tower. The Zohar says that when the Messiah ascends to this tower to read the Torah, this same dove, the exact one Noah sent out, will reappear.
That literally gave me chills when I read it. It implies that the dove wasn't just a biological creature that lived and died thousands of years ago. It's a spiritual agent that is still active.
Because the dove is the agent of connection. It was the agent that signaled the end of the first destruction, and the Zohar sees it as the agent that will signal the final redemption. It's the exact same energy. It's the awakening of the spirit of Torah within the world. It's hiding in the tower, waiting for the right frequency to fly again.
Wow. So the dove signals that the earth is dry, the connection is live, it's time to move. Genesis 8:16. Go forth from the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. Again, a really simple command. But the Zohar asks a tough question here. Why did they have to wait for the command? If the door is open and the ground is dry, just leave. Why sit there in the dark?
Because you don't just leave a spiritual state. You have to be birthed from it. The Zohar frames the ark explicitly as a womb.
The ark as Melchut, acting as a gestation chamber.
Exactly. Think about what the flood was. It was a time when the external environment, the world of shells, the kelopot, was completely hostile to holiness. The seed of humanity, which was Noah, had to be enclosed.
And Noah corresponds to Yesod here, right? The righteous one.
Yes, Noah is Yesod, the foundation. And Yesod must enter Malshut, the ark, to preserve the seed. This is a fundamental Kabbalah concept. Aber, gestation. When the external world is overwhelmed by din, the light must go into concealment. It goes into the ark. It cannot shine openly, or the external forces will latch onto it and nurture the kelopot.
So the year in the ark wasn't just waiting out the rain. It was a necessary period of concealment so that the souls could actually survive the toxicity of the environment.
Precisely. They were being reformulated. The ark is a crucible, and that explains the command to go forth. You cannot leave the womb until the time of birth is determined. The command to go forth was the authorization for the zivug, the union, to manifest openly again.
Because it says go forth and be fruitful and multiply.
Right. The Zohar points out that while in the ark marital relations were strictly forbidden, the zivug was suspended because the world simply couldn't handle the light. It was all internal. Go forth means the restriction is lifted. Malchut has completed the gestation, and now Yesod can pour the influence back out into the lower reality. It is the literal rebirth of the world.
And immediately upon this rebirth, the very first thing Noah does is build an altar. Genesis 8:20. And Noah built an altar unto the Lord. Now, usually we think of this as just gratitude, thanks for saving me. But the Zohar views this as a massive act of tikkun.
It is the primary tikkun. It's highly technical. What is an altar? In the language of the Zohar, the altar is Malshut.
Wait, I thought the ark was Melchut.
Malchut changes roles. This is key to understanding the Partsufim. The ark was Malchut as a protector, a womb, a shield against the outside. It was closed off. The altar is Malchut in an open state as a vessel for elevation. When Noah, who is Yesod, brings the offering to the altar, which is Malchut, he is performing the act of Yuchud, unification. He is reconnecting the lower grade with the upper grade.
And the text says, God smelled the sweet savor the reach nekoch.
That scent is the rising of the feminine waters we talked about with the dove. It causes the supernal willingness the ratson to rest upon the world. This is the mechanism that mitigates future severity. The pleasing odor is what sweetens the Jevra. It convinces the upper worlds that the lower world is now capable of a relationship again.
Which leads us directly to the covenant, the rainbow. I think for a lot of people, the rainbow is just a nice poetic promise, like I won't drown you again.
Yeah.
But in the Zohar, the rainbow is, well, it's graphic, and it's highly technical. It's almost like an electrical diagram of the Sephirot.
It's very technical. Zohar explains that the rainbow is the visual manifestation of Yesod shining within the cloud.
The cloud being Malshut.
Yes. When Yesod, which is the covenant, the Brit, illuminates Malshut, you get the spectrum of colors. The Zohar emphasizes the three primary colors. White, red, green. These aren't random. They correspond directly to the Sephirot. Cheese, Gevurah, Tiferet.
So the rainbow is visual proof that the Sephirot are working in harmony.
Exactly. Before the flood, the world was monochrome. It was all red, all Gevurah, all judgment. Or as corrupt, cheesed. The rainbow signifies synthesis. It means the right column and the left column are being harmonized by the central column.
It's the presence of Tiferet blending the extremes.
And that's exactly why it's the sign of the covenant. It's not just a post-it note for God. It's the sign that the connection between upper and lower worlds has been functionally reestablished. God says, I will look upon the bow that I may remember the everlasting covenant. It's not that God forgets. It's that the presence of the rainbow, the presence of this Sephiric harmony, is the actual mechanism that prevents destruction. As long as Yesod shines into Maltrad and creates that spectrum, the world is safe. The curse is removed because the flow of energy is regulated.
It's just amazing to trace this arc through the chapter. We started Genesis 8 with the waters receding, which we identified as the removal of the Sitra Achra and the Dinim through the power of Tishrei. Then the dove, the reawakening of the desire for holiness and the mitzvah using its wings. Then the exit, the rebirth of souls from the womb of concealment. And finally, the rainbow, the stabilized, harmonized system. It's a complete blueprint for restoration.
It really is. It's a manual for how to put a broken world back together. And if we connect this to the bigger picture to your life, this isn't just history. The Zohar is always talking about the present.
So what does this mean for you right now? How do we apply the mechanics of the flood and the ark today?
It means we all go through cycles of Genesis 6, 7, and 8. We all experience floods. Times when we are totally overwhelmed by judgment, by chaos, by the waters of the world confusing us. When the noise of the Sitra Achra is just too loud. And the Zohar is telling us that the response to that flood is not always to fight it head on. Sometimes the correct response is to enter the ark.
To retreat.
To gestate. To go into the ark of Torah study of spiritual seclusion. To let the ark Malchut protect you while the anger of the world rages outside. You cannot fight the flood when the Jeveros are that strong. You will drown. You have to ride it out in the vessel of holiness. You have to undergo Ibur.
But you can't stay there forever. That's the trap of the comfort zone, right? Just staying in the womb.
No, you can't. And that's the ultimate lesson of Genesis 8. There comes a moment where you have to open the window. You have to send out the dove. You have to test the waters to see if it's time to rebuild. And eventually you have to go forth. You have to take the light you cultivated in the dark, in the room of the ark, and bring it out to build an altar, to serve, to connect, to create a covenant in the open air.
It's a blueprint for teshuvah. Return isn't just saying sorry. It's a process of withdrawal, gestation, and rebirth.
Precisely. It's about rebuilding the parts off. If you skip the ark, you die in the flood. If you refuse to leave the ark, you never build the altar. You need the full cycle.
I want to leave you with one thought that really stuck with me from the Shlakalicha source you mentioned earlier. We talked about the renowned dove waiting for the Messiah.
Yes.
It makes me think about our own arcs. If we are currently in a state of concealment, if we are holding on to our own personal olive leaves, those little bitter scraps of sustenance that keep us going, we have to remember that the dove is still out there. The mechanism for redemption is already built into the system.
That is the provocative thought. The dove isn't gone. It's hidden in the tower. The potential for that connection, for that final ascent to Zeir Anpin, is waiting for us to initiate the signal. We are the ones who have to open the window.
Open the window, look for the olive leaf, and be ready to build the altar.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Zohar's Genesis 8.
It's been a real pleasure.
We will see you next time.
Sound disappears, but the wisdom contained within remains as light. Today's deep dive ends here. Producer Talmud K, and we will see you next time with deeper insights. Peace be with you all.
Peace be with you all.
알겠어. 진짜 말로 하는 게 아니야. Under the tongue, just prove it.